Hi everyone, welcome back to episode number 4. So what we're doing today is, in light of no cricket going on, the most exciting thing that's hopefully going to take place this year is the T20 World Cup in Australia later on this year in October. And T20 as a format for Pakistanis is probably the most exciting one. I think if you look back at like the last 6 or 7 years, it's the one format where we've been the most competitive in at all times. I wouldn't necessarily say most competitive, but most consistent, but most competitive in throughout this period. So we've all gone ahead and picked our basically like our best 11s or best 12 that we would send into the field. And what we realize is that our core group of players is actually pretty much almost the same, but none of us have any agreement on where we're starting these guys to play. And so what we're going to do today is essentially go over each person's lineup and team formation to see why they think that their picks are like the best suited for the order that the team should be in for Australia. And we're going to switch up our order a little bit today. So we're going to start off with Hamad because he didn't get to speak that much last time because Asad took over like all of his time. And so Hamad, I think your team out of everyone's is the most interesting in the sense that at number 3, you're slotting in Haider Ali, who, of course, I don't even know if he's ever been to Australia before. And apart from that, you have Iftikhar Ahmed, Imad Wasim, Shadab Khan, and Mohammad Hafiz, all 4 of whom are in your top 11 and are spinners and are more than likely to bowl. And, none of them is going in as a pure batsman. So why don't you start us off with like why you think that is the best 11?
So Haider Ali, I think, slots in at number 3 purely because unfortunately Pakistan doesn't have a number 3 that you can count on. Babar Azam is probably one that would fit into that slot pretty easily, and I think someone did put them in. I think Umair and Asad put them in at 3. But at the same time, the opener slot is pretty weak as well. So Babar Azam being the best batsman, I would put him on top. Which then brings me to, okay, who's your next best batsman? And going on recent form, yes, it was in the PSL, which is very different conditions to what Australia would be. But I think Haider Ali has talent, and I think that he's highly rated by everyone, foreign coaches and local coaches. The other option would have been putting in Hafiz or Malik or someone with 20 years experience, but at the end of the day, they're averaging about 20 in Australia and South Africa and New Zealand, which is somewhat. Pretty sure Haider Ali can put together 20 runs as well. So I would rather go with some young blood rather than a 38-year-old guy. And then as far as the spinners were concerned, so it's actually not the spinners that I've put in. It's more they were thought of more as batsmen. The only ones who are coming in as pure spinners, but can still play that Adab Khan and Imad Wasim and Hafiz. So Hafiz would probably get, I think even in Australia he can open the bowling with a fast bowler. Imad Wasim and Shadab give you that option in the middle. Although we do have team, I do have 3 fast bowlers, so it just gives that versatility. But I would not take out Iftikhar. I think he's proven this year to be one of the most consistent batsmen in the lower middle order. I would not take out Imad Wasim either because we don't have firepower in our batting order if we take him out. And I think Shadab is kind of molding himself into a similar player as what Imad Wasim is at the moment for us. So it's not more about having 4 spinners. It's more about getting the batting depth that we require.
So I think it's interesting. I've always been of the opinion that when you're bowling in T20, you need to bowl defensively, and spinners do tend to highlight that a little bit more. I think 2 of our best defensive spinners are Imad Wasim and Hafiz, and the third one being Nawaz. You didn't think Nawaz would fit into that?
No, I don't think Nawaz fits in because I would say Nawaz does not compete in terms of his batting with Imad and Iftikhar.
Mhm.
If I need a third option as an off spinner, I would put in Iftikhar any day. I
Again,
don't think
going back,
Nawaz anything adds anything different. And Shadab is completely different to the others because he's a leg spinner, and leg spinners generally are more aggressive
I mean,
at
he's an
the end of
attacking
any ball.
bowler. Yeah, he's
And
an attacking bowler, and I mean, what's upsetting about Shadab is that he's moved away from his variations, and I don't know if someone in PCB has gone to him and said, "Yeah, please stop bowling your googlies," but that was what was the X factor in his bowling, and he's completely stopped doing it. But that's besides the point. Heather Ali was an interesting pick as well. I loved watching him play in PSL, and I can't wait for him to make it to Pakistani colors. I just
I honestly don't think we have batsmen right now to replace. I mean, I think like there are enough slots in our batting lineup where you can put in someone like Heather Ali. At least give the guy a shot. Yeah, it's Australia. Yes, it's the T20 World Cup, but I think the guy has handled decent amount of pressure in the team.
You wouldn't go with Haris Sohail?
No, man, Haris Sohail is too slow for T20. I would have him in the ODI team in a blink of an eye, but not T20.
Okay.
I just think that I went with Heather Ali as well, but I just want to know how you decided to put him at three, though. Like, isn't that? I mean, isn't that too high of
We
like
should
a?
let's wait till we get to your batting order for that one.
Aren't you setting
Um,
up for failure if you?
Yeah, I just think him at the top of the order.
But we'll discuss that when we get to yours.
Yeah, your order is it's a thing of its own, Ahmed. Chalo, let's move on to Khurram. So Khurram, you're the only person that picked Shan Masood. I think a lot of people in Pakistan would not back you up on that. And then you're also taking Shoaib Malik with you to Australia, which I have. I mean, I don't want to start on that, but let's go over why you think Shan Masood is the right opening partner for Babar Azam in Australia.
so a few reasons. I think Shan Masood has on the international stage, he's been doing well in Test cricket. In the PSL, he led Multan to the top of the table primarily with his contribution with the pack. Apart from one innings where he didn't have a very good score, every single one of his innings was over 120 strike rate. He scored 250 plus runs. He's the third highest Pakistani run scorer in the PSL this year. He's averaging, I think, 31. Not great, but all right. I think we have.
I think that's pretty high for T20s.
Yeah, for T20
30, 30 is like a 50 as far as like ODI to T20s goes, right? So
yeah, it's good. It's good. It's not Babar Azam. And I think we might have if we're comparing an appropriate partner to Babar Azam, he's not all the way there. But at the same time, if you look at my squad and if we look at generally our squad that most of us have picked, there's a lot of uncertainty that comes with our batting lineup, and I think Shan Masood brings a little bit of stability along with good run scoring at a decent rate. He's also an excellent player of the short delivery. We've seen that in South Africa. We've seen that in a few Test series now. He's done well, and I think him coming onto the T20i scene might actually be good for our overall balance. We have a lot of really explosive batsmen lower down, but we need someone who can stabilize the innings and carry the bat through.
Yeah, I'm not even sure about the quality of you said uncertainty in our batting lineup. Like, so as Pakistanis, that might as well be part of our national anthem.
Also, you have 5 spinners in your team. You guys were talking to me with 4. Khurram has 5.
I have 5 spinners, but I don't consider Iftikhar as a spinner. I think that he is a spinner at best at club level. I don't think he should ever be bowling international level cricket.
By that standard, Hamad, you have 3 now.
So my issue with Khurram's the top 3 was that Shan Masood is a good batsman, but you risk making your top 3 super one-dimensional because none of them are big hitters, explosive hitters of the ball. They're technically sound batsmen if you look at Hafiz there as well. But they're not people who are going to clear the boundary in big Australian grounds all the time. And so for me, that was the biggest issue with this top 3 is
Aren't the boundaries going to be adjusted for T20s? Aren't they usually a little bit smaller for T20s?
A little bit,
versus
but
what
if
they are for
Probably,
tests?
they
Yeah,
are a
I-
bit, but the Big Bash League
fact-
boundaries are still larger than the average subcontinent or other
I
leagues.
I get
Ball
Azar's point.
carries better there as well, though.
Yeah.
So I get Azar's point, and I think that's a fairly valid point. My thinking here is the same as with what I have with Babar Azam, right? You don't necessarily need to be hitting out of the ground in the first 10 overs to maintain a high strike rate or to maintain a high run rate. With the field in with for the first 6 overs, you need to be able to pick your gaps, and these two players are technically sound enough to do that. Hafiz coming in, if they give Hafiz a decent platform, 50, 60 odd runs to build off of, and Hafiz comes in with an attacking mindset rather than a build an innings mindset,
Which he has to.
which he has to in T20, and which is why he does very well in T20s compared to ODIs, is that it doesn't matter how big the ground is at that point then, but if Hafiz and Malik come in and Shadab come in with the luxury of going after the bowling, we're in a completely different place as compared to if Hafiz has to come in and build an innings because he sucks at that.
I just have one last point on Khurram's team. Like, I think you took Shan because you think that he is also good enough to stabilize and bat through the innings. But I think if you're picking Babar as an opener, you're already slotting him for that role. And I mean, I think having
No,
like
I
two
think
openers with that same sort of role doesn't really make sense.
kind of
You could just
understand.
go with someone. No, I don't mind Shan as a batsman. I think he's done well in the PSL. He's growing as a batsman, but I just think that two openers who are both, picked so that they can bat through the innings rather than attacking that power play. I think.
Yeah, but I actually kind of get Khurram's team. Like if I look at his
Yeah,
his,
I think
batting
both can
lineup,
bat.
I think his batting lineup is like the
Probably
most
that's
likely
It's
to
the
make,
best.
to make 150.
It's the best lineup that we've come up
Shadab at
with.
4, I don't know if I
I
agree
would
with that,
disagree big
but
time, man. I mean,
sure.
I don't know if you guys watched how
All
much
right.
BBL you guys watched, but all the teams who did well in the BBL, they had
BBL isn't
good
that
hitters.
great, man.
Okay, hold on.
Haris Rauf
Point
was
on-
like king of BBL.
Point to
He's my
make
12th
on
man.
point to make on BBL. BBL, in my opinion, is not of that caliber that it used to be 2, 3,
Shane
4.
Watson
Yeah,
just said,
agree.
right, that BBL is like not even
I
comparable
don't-
to IPL and PSL. And
I
that
don't
those are
think
the only two
Shadab is
leagues
at that level yet. I mean, yeah, he's grown as a batsman, but not number 4 for the international team of Pakistan. Come
Hello,
on.
hi.
Yeah, man, but you need
number
big shots, yeah.
एक
You
on
need
that
big shots.
on that note, since we're talking about Shadab at 4, Uzair,
Uzair's
Shadab
got
at
to be 3.
Shadab at 3.
Shadab at 3.
Yeah,
भाई opener ही बना लो.
Yeah, so I picked him basically because there was no other place to fit him. I mean, I was debating between Hafiz at 3 and Shadab at 4, similar to what Khurram had. But the reason why I picked Shadab at 3 was that he's been enjoying batting up the order and seems to have the confidence. And if we're going to have a team which is going to have a shot at playing or doing well in this World Cup, we need to take some chances, and that's why I picked Shadab there. But again, the issue was not like I am like totally in love with the way he bats. It's a risk. I understand that.
I am.
But it is something that we have to take a chance on a young batsman and tell him to go have a go at it in a World Cup. And he's a player, as far as I've seen, who thrives on confidence and who's been working hard on his batting. So the PSL was an eye-opener in terms of how hard he's worked on his batting. So I think there is still enough time for him to make the case for that number 3 or 4 spot.
And it's not, and this is not just
So are
from the PSL though. Hold on one second.
Wait,
So this is not
are you
just.
suggesting that he's going to become the next Steve Smith?
I mean, I don't know, but he's working
ये
hard
तो
on
बहुत
his
लंबा खींच लिया तुमने यार.
हाँ, इतना लंबा नहीं.
I think that he is going to
Putting him at
captain
number
the
3, yeah.
Pakistan. I think he's
You've
going
been
to
saying
captain
future
Pakistan.
captain for him for a long time. We all know that. Okay,
I love
Uzair,
Shadab.
The team,
one,
that doesn't mean he
I have a
bats at
question though.
3.
Are you saying that you're open to Shadab being at 3 or 4? Like you basically don't have a solid spot for him?
Yeah, I don't have a solid
or
spot.
or are you okay? All right, fine. So it's not like you're 100% sold on.
No, he's either 3 or
Shadab at
4.
3.
I would
or 4.
prefer to have
Okay.
him at 4, but
So
he's at 3
you're
can
all-
pick up a whole inning. So which is why
So
I
you're
don't-
also one of 2 guys who picked Mohammad Rizwan as your keeper. So why Rizwan?
Yeah, so Rizwan, because he's someone who's been backed by the management, and he's someone who's up on the rise. He's fitter than Sarfraz. From the last few matches I've seen, he's actually been more athletic than Sarfraz. And in a World Cup that's being played in Australia in large grounds, you need someone who's fitter, who can run faster. And Sarfraz to me was very disappointing over the last 18 months or so, where he let his fitness slide. And again, it's a toss-up for me. If Sarfraz can make the case that he's actually fitter and is actually living up to the highest standards to come back into this team, then fine. But the management has seemed to back Rizwan for the future. And if you're going to do that, then my view is that you might as well let him have a go at the World Cup rather than tell him, no, you're not there yet, because that again damages the confidence of a player. And Rizwan is just athletically fitter, in my view.
You've got Rizwan in the lower middle order, but the guy can't clear the boundary. How does that make sense? Wouldn't you rather bring him up the order?
No, so I put him around, right? So I put him around Iftikhar and Imad and Shoaib Malik, which was my thinking, was that those are three players who are explosive batsmen, and Rizwan can play the role of building partnerships and maneuvering the strike with them. And again, I know Shoaib Malik
6 or
doesn't have
7, when you're coming in at 6 or 7, you've got
but
3, 4 overs to play.
Pakistan's batting lineup, the way it is, also collapses. So you still need someone who can stay at the crease on one end as well.
Then that definitely will collapse.
So my thoughts on this is that Rizwan has a clear kryptonite when it comes to batting low down the order. Sarfraz had struggled
Under pressure.
at both playing up the order and lower down the order, but you did get runs out of him playing at the finishing at the finishing role. He wasn't the best at it, and he did tend to send people like Imad Wasim above him. I would, if I was to go with either one of them, I think it's a disservice to Rizwan to put him in that situation, simply because I think that he's a fantastic batsman, and putting him in a slot where he's not going to succeed is unfair on the talent that he brings to the team.
What is his slot though, like generally?
I don't think he should
play
play
at 4 or 5, man, not more lower than that.
His batting, I think his
Also
batting
ODI.
role is, a filler role for T20. There's nothing he's done in a league or in an international game that to me says that
he doesn't get picked for franchise.
That when you pick, Mohammad Rizwan, you slot him in as a batsman who's also your keeper, right? Like, I think you're picking.
He didn't even make his PSL
even everything Uzair just said right now to justify him as his keeper was all based on like fitness versus Sarfaraz. It really wasn't based on batting, right? But continuing on with keepers, Umair. I mean, for God's sake. But here you are.
Ask one quick question on the keeper. Put him as a keeper first, as exactly a keeper. Who's better? You think technique wise, like Sarfraz and Rizwan, are they on par or is there a big difference?
I think they're both pretty much the same. They're both not very good keepers. They're just not. If you compare both of them to some of the others that are going around, they're just not at the same level. But,
I mean internationally, not for Pakistan.
Yeah, they're the top 3 in Pakistan, I would say, but they're not internationally. They're not the best.
But they're better than Kamran Akmal, which is the other.
On that note, talking about keepers that are not in the top 3 in Pakistan, Umair, Kamran Akmal as your opener and your go-to keeper for matlab जिस बंदे के ऊपर like universal meme बना है, A for Akmal, B for ball, C for catch, D for drop.
I can explain. I picked him primarily as an opener. I think I am not a fan of Babar opening in like a T20. I know he's doing well, but I feel that him as an opener is basically like putting a bullseye for opposition fast bowlers. You get him, I think the team is done. Like the batting is just not strong enough to build anything without Babar going early. So you pick like 2 openers. Again, I don't think there are any really good choices in that position. I like Shan. So I could have put him, but I just think that if you're picking 2 T20 openers and you want openers who can attack that power play, I think Fakhr and Kamran are pretty good choices. I think Kamran obviously just generally is a toxic player, but I think at least if you look at the PSL, he's just one of those guys who consistently get scores and also has like the upside of like one big score.
But how
Compared to like
much
the
is the
other.
PSL going to matter for Australia?
I mean, we're all basically like picking based on
But also,
recent T20 form.
Your logic is interesting there, where you're saying you don't want to put Babar Azam up top because if he goes, then you collapse.
Yeah, and then you're
you
protecting
put
him.
Kamran
You're
Akmal
protecting him with
Kamran
Kamran Akmal.
Akmal. How does that work?
ये बिल्कुल वो ये कि तुमने chess में अपने king को जो है 2 points के पीछे बिठा दिया कि like here's my protection.
I'm saying if you have a T20 power play up front and you want two openers who can take advantage of that, I would say Akmal's up there. I mean, he's probably going to cost you with a couple of dropped catches, but if I were to pick between him,
that's his average gone. That's his runs gone right there.
I mean, so would Sarfraz and Rizwan. I mean, they're obviously better openers, but I don't think there's like that big of an improvement. I mean, I just think that you have to consider the PSL and not just this PSL, but the last few PSLs. The guy has been scoring. He's like right up there. I think below Babar as like the leading Pakistan run scorer. The guy scores centuries. I mean, again, he did have a century in this PSL.
Wait,
yeah, he did. I mean,
he's not in the top 3 Pakistani run scorers.
He's what?
He's not in the top 3 Pakistani run scorers for 2020.
Who are the top 3?
Shan Masood, Shadab Khan, and Shadab Khan
was Babar Azam, Shadab Khan, Shan Masood, and then Kamran Akmal was number 4.
Yeah, but I mean, I picked him mainly as an opener. I just think that if someone can like attack that power play, I would pick him. And I mean, if Sharjeel was a little further along since his ban, I would.
Further along in what sense? Like his
weight loss?
मतलब ban के बाद. I mean, he did play in the
PSL. It was Eric's favorite topic, weight loss. Like, I think this is like the 3rd time in 4 episodes that you brought up like weight loss and like this.
But I mean, okay, just generally, like, I also like would like to know what you guys think about Babar as an opener. I mean, I know you all put him in, but you put him in also because he's just been playing as an opener. So, I mean, would you? Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Before you jump into that, I do want to say that with Kamran Akmal coming in as an opening batsman and as a keeper, it kind of, if you just look at it on paper and forget the historic references there, it actually does. It does
all the data.
It opens up a slot.
It not only opens up a slot, it actually creates a really good balance in the team, because right now everyone else who's ignored Kamran Akmal are basically playing a specialist keeper who's not really going to bat, and that's what everyone else is doing. For me.
I didn't go with that, but we'll get to that later. Hi, I mean,
and frankly,
you can't say ignore the historical context and then pick Kamran Akmal on historical context. Like,
yeah, I'll actually defend Umair here. For me, I was about to pick Kamran Akmal again for that pure opening spot. He's good against short bowling. He's done pretty well. He's a good hooker, good cutter, etc. He's pretty good, but I only didn't pick him because I cannot. I think catches win matches, and we cannot afford those drop catches. So that's why. That's the only reason.
And on that note, who did Asad pick? Who did Asad pick?
Chalo bhai, Asad. Now explain Sharjeel Khan.
Yeah, so Sharjeel, look, I think, look, again, I like I said,
Sharjeel, okay, hold on. Let me rephrase that. Don't just explain Sharjeel Khan. Sharjeel plus Fakhr, like they're the same player, just different pant sizes.
Exactly, because I think that Australian pitches will be bouncy, will be kind of, there's not a lot of front foot play, and these guys both are amazing at camping at the background, just whacking the ball. I think they can give you a flying start in the power play, 50, 60 runs.
Maybe like 1 in 6 games, man.
I don't think so, man. They both did really well in PSL and against short bowling. If you watch it closely, they both pulled amazingly.
Sharjeel's done really well in Australia. So in our last tour as well. My only thing here is that he, like, since his ban, he hasn't played any cricket other than PSL. Like, you can't throw him into the World Cup. I expect to go there to compete for the top slot with the Pakistan team.
I would rather throw him in than Haider Ali, etc. Right? Who's not tested at all. At least this guy's played. He's mature. He's experienced. He can whack it, man, in my opinion.
And fix matches and change some grips and whatnot.
I would just say, like, with a lot of your teams, like, you guys have you guys have like solid openers, but these are not guys who are well suited to like that 6 over power play. I mean, you need at least one guy who can just take on the bowlers. I mean, someone like a Shan or, I mean, Babar obviously can play at any position, but you at least need
Not gonna
one
argue.
guy.
I also do want to defend two other picks because I think that's gonna raise a lot of questions. Is Sohail and Shoaib Malik. Now Haris Sohail is someone that I was very impressed with him and his maturity level in England, right? In the World Cup, the way he played, the pressure he absorbed, and I saw him play short bowling. I saw him play. He has that upper gear as well. It's just that when there's a collapse, he builds the innings and etc. But I think he has the shots. He's a sweet timer of the ball. Probably one of the best timers of the ball in terms of actual middle order batsmen that I've seen across the sport. So for me, he was actually a pretty solid pick that I didn't think twice actually before taking Haris. And then Shoaib Malik, frankly, I just took him for 2 reasons.
For me as well.
Yeah, Haris is a good
2 reasons I took Shoaib Malik that I also want to just quickly highlight. One, I just think he's phenomenal against spin. I mainly took him to middle order, maybe when other players teams will bring spin on. I think he's fantastic at spin bowling, and then I just also think he's also riding off a high of current leagues. And the last element is just his experience. A lot of this team is pretty inexperienced, so I think he does bring that one element of experience. And it was between Hafiz and Malik, but I just think Hafiz, I just have issues with him because he'd want to play up the order, and I'm just not confident with him and 3 slips in Australia. So I was like, chalo, let's just take Malik in for the middle order.
So on that note, I'll actually get into the Hafiz versus Malik thing because obviously the likelihood of both of them getting picked is actually pretty high, right? Because just being like Pakistan cricket and the whole, these two guys having played for both more than 15 years and signing off and all of that, they're both going to be there. I wouldn't pick Shoaib Malik at all, and I'm one of 2 people who didn't. And the reason I'd go with that is that, one, I think he's well past his, his expiration date for his international level at least. Secondly, I have never run through numbers like Shoaib Malik's for a career as polarizing in spin versus pace conditions. Like, this guy is just not suited to go play and I find it really interesting. I said that for all the hammering you've done on like nippy fast conditions, that you still have the faith in him to put him in at number 5, which is such a pivotal role in a T20 team. Like I would never take Shoaib Malik anywhere outside of the subcontinent.
Because that's where spin bowling will come in, and it's a
no. But why?
Plus, I saw his record. He's done pretty well. He's not done bad.
Based on like, how do you know that that's exactly when the spinners are going to come on? Like, not every team is going to play to that formation.
South Africa pitches are very different from Australian pitches. South African pitches are probably, in my opinion, probably the most dynamic. Most dynamic.
They're the most neutral. They give everyone a little bit of something, especially their test wickets. Things change. All right. Anyway, that's
I can be persuaded either way.
Shoaib Malik.
It's one of them. So Hafiz does bring one interesting element, which is why I almost had him, was his bowling. That whole lefty bowling.
Yes, exactly.
It can be useful. So that's the only reason I can agree that Hafiz.
I'm going with that bit.
Let's be honest.
Yeah. Let's be honest.
Both play.
Come September, we're gonna know that the team has purchased like 2 extra business class tickets and.
Umair selection committee में और Kamran Akmal भी वापस आ गए.
So what's funny is one second. Sorry. So what's funny is that the bowling lineup that we've picked, most of them are not going to be playing because we picked them based on who we think should be there. One of those bowlers doesn't even have a central contract, and good chance with PCB's ego in place, they're not going to take him. That's Mohammad Amir. Yeah.
They'll take him eventually.
Oh, yeah, Wahab, especially
Amir is going to miss the T20 World Cup.
Yeah, there's no way.
I don't know. I actually kind of agree with Khurram.
I agree with Khurram.
There's so much uncertainty with PCB. Like, there are two things that happen if the PCB doesn't give you a central contract. One is your right to be captain after the next disaster, and two is that that's really the end of it, right? And like, I mean, I just don't see Muhammad Amir becoming captain in the future, so I'm going to go with the other past outcome, which is that this really could be the end of it for Amir. I mean, especially with, you know, like even like the older greats and everyone coming out and saying that, you know, board ने इतना time invest किया था Amir में, and like whether that's true or not is a different story altogether. But like there's this perception being created in the media that Muhammad Amir was, you know, he was brought back and that he owes this to Pakistan cricket, and then he disappointed Pakistan cricket by not following up on his like so-called duties as far as like Test cricket goes. And so therefore, you know, if PCB wants to move on from him altogether, it's perfectly fine for them to do so. Now, whether that happens or not is different. I think I'm the only guy who went with Sarfaraz as an opener, and so I was kind of thinking the same way you were, not for blasting the ball, but for kind of getting like, you know, cheap and easy runs. Because I think the one thing Sarfaraz is still very good at is just fine. It's just, you know, like playing those like cheeky shots to just get off strike, add in a couple of more runs. I also went with Babar Azam as an opener. Interestingly, you know, we've all picked Iftikhar Ahmed, which kind of blew my mind. I didn't think that he would be picked 6 times. It seems like a little bit of like recency bias.
Which probably means that he may not make it to the playing 11 of the
No,
world.
he's a Misbah favorite. He
He's a Misbah boy. Yeah, Misbah boy hai wo.
But
Misbah ka
yeah,
boy
the guy
hai wo.
deserves it also. I mean,
I
for the
agree.
last year, he has had.
I agree. I just didn't think that all 6 of us would pick him.
So just really quickly on Iftikhar, I think he's averaging 60 plus in.
Yeah, you know, my.
So he's averaging 108. He's averaging 108 in Australia at a strike rate of 150.
In
right
how
now.
many matches?
The next 60 seconds are a quick lesson on averages by On Jafri.
Three matches, and how many dismissals? 1, right? 1 dismissal. Khurram?
Sorry, I was
Since
on
you're looking at the number.
on one.
Data check.
Yeah, at 1 exactly.
And when was
Okay.
that match? By the way, when was the match?
That was last year,
Last
right?
year.
Last year.
Yeah. I'm surprised
He
no
played-
one
he
picked.
played
No
well.
one
He was
picked.
one of our solid batsmen over there, man.
No one picked
Yeah, he
Asif
played
Ali.
well.
Asif Ali or Hamad.
I'm surprised
Hamad,
Rana
Asif
didn't
Ali.
pick
Yeah,
Asif Ali.
Yeah,
Didn't pick
actually,
Asif
yeah.
Ali.
The only surprise here is that Hamad didn't pick Asif Ali.
Yeah, if they
Golden boy.
if they
Rana,
call
have
us
you
in
lost
that
faith?
Asif Ali slot, he
So-
doesn't make it in this team. Not
So I
in
think
time.
Asif Ali is a great league batsman. I would pick him in every league game. I just can't see him playing in for Pakistan. I would have really liked him to mature enough into that Butler type role for Pakistan, but he's just not.
But what do you mean you don't
Why?
see him playing for Pakistan? You picked him for your 11 in the World Cup.
Asif Ali?
Oh, sorry.
I
I
do
thought you were
want
talking
to-
about Iftikhar. Sorry.
Wait,
I
hold
do
on.
want to hit on one selection of yours. I think we should
Go
talk
ahead.
about this is Haris Rauf versus Naseem Shah. Right now, Haris Rauf is someone who's very
No, I
used to
picked
Australian conditions.
both. I picked Haris
Oh,
as
Haris-
just as my 12th man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, right? But as in, it's
Yeah.
interesting that you give Naseem the nod over him. Like Naseem, I mean,
It's
I
not.
think
It's
I
not
just-
really. It's not really a nod. I think it would depend. It would depend on the match and the kind of form that they show. Like, you know, when we get back to this topic again in like August, September, whenever we do that. I'm taking both of them. I think Haris did really well in the BBL, but I'm also very cautious about the quality of the BBL because I think that it's not. Look, in most cases, like, you know, when you look at the IPL or you look at the PSL, I think they're quite close to the best, like highest international level. I don't think the BBL is there. I think Haris kind of, you know, also either he didn't carry his form from the BBL coming into the PSL, or it really is just like a stark difference in quality between.
Well, there was an international series that he played as well, and he was not very good at it.
He was.
He was okay. Are you talking about the Bangladesh series?
Yeah, he was not okay. He was bad.
and I think there's a reason for that. By the way, because I-
Second game,
I saw that close.
he only went for like 7 and over, didn't he?
Yeah. So
27 runs is not that bad.
Yeah.
Like 4 overs,
It's
like
the
what
length
would you
he
want?
hits, by the way. If you saw the PSL, it's the lengths that he hits. PSL versus BBL, he tried to hit the same lengths. He didn't adjust to the PSL style of play. But in the BBL, he hit great lengths, and I think he bowled, you know, really
Yeah,
well.
again, he hit lengths that the ball that they use in Australia and the sort of like, you know, hardness of the wickets in Australia, like it suits that, right? But
Yeah.
Pakistan doesn't produce wickets as hard, and I think, and I'm quite confident, I might be wrong, that the ball we use is also a little bit different. So
It is.
these are like, you know, I mean, like small nuances, but I do think they sometimes make a difference.
So my point here, I'm sorry. So the point here is that you can typically go with one bowler are between Hasnain, Haris Rauf, and Naseem Shah. One needs to be picked for the
Why
one
one?
tear
Wouldn't you
away
go with
possible.
Wouldn't you go with two? Aren't your bottom three going to be all
Shaheen
pacers?
and Amir.
So
If you're
if
picking
I
Shaheen
have
and Amir, then you pick one more, right?
if I have Shaheen and Amir, then I would pick.
So okay,
I'm picking
I see
Shaheen
what you're saying.
every single time. एक तो वो बंदा cute इतना है, वो तो जब smile करता है, it's just the end of it. And on top of that, I don't think there is a more improved player in the Pakistan team.
I agree. Yeah.
I haven't seen that kind of a transformation for a player in
He's a
forever.
star.
He's
He's going to be a star.
he is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Forget that.
He's not there, yeah.
Hassan Ali is injured.
Oh,
Hassan Ali is
I thought
injured.
Khurram's going to pick Hassan Ali.
Yeah, Hassan Ali's
Hassan
a
Ali
lot of
would- if Hassan Ali
Hassan
was,
Ali is like
doing
facing
well.
surgery or something, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
He's treating. Like his medical thing really is.
It's really
Hassan
bad.
Ali-
Hassan Ali is at that point, like, with his surgery and everything, that like this could also very well just be the end. Like,
Yeah,
he
I
may
think so.
never.
Junaid Khan
Yeah.
wala
There's
scene now,
actually
yeah.
there's a fair chance he never makes it back to like international cricket, which would be very sad. But I don't
Yeah.
think that that's the end that he deserves for like some of the games that he's played. But again, Hassan is also a pretty one-dimensional bowler, even if he was fit. Like I
But
don't know
One other
like,
thing
how
I
much
do
I
want to
would
touch
back on
upon
him.
is also Shadab as a bowler. What do we think? What are our views of Shadab? Is he just going to bowl 1 or 2 overs, or like what's our view as how he's going to be used as a bowler? In
4 overs, man.
4 overs, he should be used as a wicket-taking
He's a good
leg
bowler.
spinner, aggressive.
Someone needs to tell him to bowl his googlies again, for the love of God.
No, because see, with Imad Wasim, let's say, and the other 3 pacers, and then there is other part-timers like Hafiz or, whoever else.
So my thoughts
he
on
may not get his full quota, right?
So my thoughts on this are Imad Wasim cannot bowl to left-handers, and he struggles a lot when he has to bowl to left-handers. But he is
This is why you need Hafiz.
which is why you kind of need Hafiz. But so between Imad Wasim and Hafiz, I see 2 overs each. So maybe a quota of 4 between them. But I don't see Shadab coming in and bowling a 2-over spell, and then Iftikhar bowling a 2-over spell to like you just can't have Iftikhar bowling.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot.
Plus, I think Pakistan's strength right now is kind of that they have a lot of players that can just come and chip in, right? Like T20 is not really like a rhythm-based game like ODIs, right? कि आप पहले अपने you're going to give your opening pair like 4 or 5 overs each. Like you can't just afford to do that. And plus, it's so easy for anyone to have a bad day because the opposition always comes swinging at you, right? Like there's no team in the world that would prefer to be 160 for 2 as opposed to 165 for 8. Like anyone will take that at the end of 20 overs. So with everyone like coming swinging at you in such a short amount of time, I think Pakistan have this strength of having a lot of guys who can chip in with like 2 overs or even just an over. So they should use that to their advantage and have all these options available.
Agree. I see Imad Wasim as opening the bowling, by the way. I don't see
Yeah, he
much
can.
sense of a role.
He can.
Yeah.
I'm always in favor of having Imad Wasim open, especially if there's a right-handed batsman who's an attacking player. Someone like Finch or someone like Jason Roy who's batting. I would much rather have Imad Wasim bowling with Shaheen Afridi, to get that wicket up front. Anyway, I think we've talked a decent bit about this.
Yeah.
So
I can quickly go over our consensus 11, and like we'll see where we get to. But basically, based on what everyone picked, we have Babar Azam and Fakhar Zaman as the openers. Mohammad Hafiz coming in at 3, Haider Ali at 4. Slot number 5 is kind of open for taking. Then you have Iftikhar Ahmed at 6, Shadab Khan at 7, Imad Wasim at 8. Mohammad Amir at 9, number 10 or 11, whichever one you want to call, one of them is open, and the other ones is filled out by Shaheen Shah Afridi. So, we all gave our reasons for why we thought our 11 was the best. I think the most left field pick I saw that made it to anyone's 11 was Kamran Akmal as
It makes
Umair's
sense.
opener. And
Trust
yeah, sure. And
If you think about it, it will make sense.
I think Khurram's batting lineup or 11 was the best.
are you now talking in third person?
Yes.
Okay. Chalo. We've gone full circle on
Time
this.
to finish off this show.
Yeah.
All right,
We'll revisit this come September. When we're actually closer to figuring out whether the virus is ending everything as we know it, or if we're gonna actually have the World Cup this year, and B, what PCB actually puts together, because it's not like they're going to use sense when it comes to filling out their team. उसमें तो वैसे भी मिसबा शो है आजकल. Let's see what coach and former captain decides
Rana,
if he wants
what
to
did
do
you
in Australia.
Rana,
Misbah
what
may
did
come
you
back.
have? Yeah, what did you have? You had a theory about Misbah, right? You want to share that really quickly before we end?
No, I just think the theory is that the ex-player Misbah will come out of retirement and speak to the current chief selector Misbah, who's going to tell the coach Misbah to hire the ex-players. So he's going to come back and make him captain. So
and
he's going to
become
come
captain.
back. He's going to come back. He's going to become the captain. He's going to be the coach. He's going to be the chief selector. Like it's going to be Misbah all over.
2007 ka badla leena.
Yeah.
Don't forget, 2007 Misbah was a good T20 player, except for that last shot.
No, yeah, he was, of course. Yeah, whatever. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
On that Misbah,
comment your playing 11 for the first match of the T20 World Cup. Like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.